Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today's list is built around one idea. Every great watch has a story worth telling. Not a brochure, not a specification sheet. A story about the film that made it famous, the race that demanded it, the magnetic field that inspired it, the craft tradition that shaped it, or the engineering philosophy that refused to accept the obvious solution. The 10 watches on today's countdown span an extraordinary range of price, origin, and purpose. But every single one of them carries a narrative that makes it more interesting to own, to wear, and to understand. From a timepiece born in the pages of science fiction to one that bridges the mechanical and digital worlds with quiet intelligence, these are the watches with something to say. Let's hear them out. Number 10. Hamilton Murph. The Hamilton Murph begins with cinema, specifically with Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, in which a battered Hamilton watch becomes the instrument through which a father communicates with his daughter across the fourth dimension of time itself. That is not a premise that most watch collaborations are asked to carry, and Hamilton carries it with a dignity and design intelligence that elevates the Murph from film merchandise to genuine horological object. The watch worn in the film was an archival Hamilton open heart reference, and the commercial Murph translates that design into a clean, refined, everyday automatic with an open-worked dial that reveals the movement beneath, a visual metaphor for time's visibility, for seeing the mechanism behind the phenomenon that resonates precisely because of the film's themes. The stainless steel case is slim and well-proportioned. The in-house H10 movement delivers that signature Hamilton 80-hour power reserve, and the overall finishing quality reflects a brand that understood the assignment and rose to it. The Murph is one of the rare instances where a film-inspired watch transcends its origin and becomes simply a very good watch that also happens to have a remarkable story. The Hamilton Murph retails at approximately $895–995 USD. Number 9. Bulova Moonwatch. The Bulova Moonwatch carries a piece of history that its modest price does absolutely nothing to diminish. Because the history is real, the watch is genuine, and the story behind it is one of the most quietly compelling in all of space exploration. On the 21st of July 1969, when Buzz Aldrin descended to the lunar surface, he was wearing a Bulova chronograph, his personal watch, chosen because his NASA-issued Omega Speedmaster had been left inside the lunar module as a backup timer after the primary mission clock failed. A Bulova, therefore, was the watch actually worn on the moon's surface during humanity's first lunar EVA. Bulova's modern moonwatch recreation draws directly from the original flight watch reference. The asymmetric case, the integrated pushers, the bold chronograph dial with its registers positioned with functional precision. The high-frequency quartz movement inside delivers the accuracy that Bulova's precisionist technology has made the brand's technical signature, operating at a frequency that produces a smooth, sweeping seconds hand and annual accuracy that mechanical movements at multiples of this price cannot match. The Bulova Moonwatch is history at an extraordinary price. The Bulova Moonwatch retails at approximately $450–505 USD. Number 8. TAG Heuer Heuer 02T. The TAG Heuer Heuer 02T is the watch that stopped the conversation about whether Swiss-manufactured tourbillons could exist below 5 figures and settled it with a single definitive answer. A tourbillon, the rotating cage that holds the escapement and balance wheel, rotating once per minute to average out the gravitational errors that affect a stationary movement, has been watchmaking's most prestigious and most expensive complication since Abraham Louis Breguet patented it in 1801. For the majority of modern watchmaking history, a tourbillon below $10,000 USD was simply not a credible proposition. TAG Heuer built one anyway. The Heuer's 02T houses an in-house manufactured tourbillon chronograph, not a simple tourbillon, but a tourbillon combined with a full flyback chronograph, in a bold sporty case with a skeletonized dial that places the rotating cage on full display at 6 o'clock. The movement architecture, the finishing quality, and the overall execution represent a significant engineering achievement that forced the industry to revise its assumptions about where complication watchmaking is possible. The Heuer 02T is the watch that democratized the tourbillon without trivializing it. The TAG Heuer Heuer 02T retails at approximately $7,900 USDC. Number 7. Bulgari Octo. The Bulgari Octo is the watch that established beyond all remaining doubt that Italian design intelligence, applied to Swiss watchmaking craft, produces a distinctive and formidable voice in the luxury watch conversation. one that owes nothing to Geneva or Le Locle or the Vallée de Joux, and everything to Rome, to architecture, to the visual tradition of a culture that has been thinking about beauty longer than Switzerland has been a country. The Octo's case is an 8-sided form layered within a round bezel, creating a geometric complexity of facets and surfaces that shifts dynamically with the angle of the light and the movement of the wrist. No other watch architecture looks quite like it from any perspective, and that visual distinctiveness is the result of genuine design conviction rather than superficial differentiation. The collection has expanded to encompass the record-breaking Finissimo variants and more robustly proportioned sports references, giving collectors considerable range within a coherent design language. Bulgari's in-house movements have developed significantly in quality and ambition, and the Octo today carries calibers worthy of the extraordinary cases that house them. The Bulgari Octo retails from approximately $8,500 USD for entry steel references. Number 6. Maurice Lacroix Aikon. The Maurice Lacroix Aikon is the integrated bracelet sports watch that punches so far above its price class, so consistently and so completely, that experienced collectors who handle it for the first time invariably check the price tag a second time. The Aikon arrived in 2016 as Maurice Lacroix's answer to the luxury sports watch conversation dominated by the Royal Oak and the Nautilus, an answer that said with considerable confidence that the design language of the integrated bracelet sports watch belongs to anyone with the manufacturing capability to execute it properly, and that Maurice Lacroix has exactly that capability. The case architecture is clean and assured, the bracelet integration seamless, and the alternating polished and brushed surfaces executed to a finishing standard that reveals a manufacturer caring genuinely about the details. The skeleton variants open the dial to reveal movement architecture of real visual interest, while the closed dial versions carry a sober, composed elegance that works in formal and casual contexts with equal ease. The automatic movement is well-regulated and reliable, and the sapphire crystal protects a dial package that looks considerably more expensive than it is. For those who want the sports watch aesthetic at an accessible entry point with zero compromise on quality, the Aikon is the clearest answer on the market. The Maurice Lacroix Aikon retails from approximately $1,500 to $2,200 USD fee. Number 5. Panerai Submersible. The Panerai Submersible is the watch that answers every question about whether the Panerai philosophy, outsized, polarizing, steeped in classified naval history, can be applied to a watch that is not merely a heritage object, but a genuinely current, technically competitive professional dive instrument. The answer is an emphatic yes, and the Submersible makes it with a directness entirely consistent with the brand's character. Where the Luminor Marina traces its lineage to the frogmen of the Italian Navy's wartime operations, the Submersible addresses the present and future of professional diving. Ceramic unidirectional bezels, contemporary case materials including Panerai's proprietary composites, and water-resistant specifications that take operational diving seriously as a use case rather than a marketing claim. The cushion case remains unmistakably Paneristy in its proportions, and the crown-protecting device remains as architecturally distinctive as ever. But the overall execution carries a modernity and technical seriousness that broadens the brand's conversation beyond its devoted base. On a rubber strap suited to actual water use, the Submersible is a watch you take into the ocean with complete confidence. On a leather strap, it remains one of the most dramatically distinctive watches in any room. The Panerai Submersible retails from approximately $9,300 USD. Number 4. Rolex Milgauss. The Rolex Milgauss is the watch that was born from a problem most people will never have, and is therefore, perhaps, the most quietly fascinating reference in the entire Rolex catalog. In the early 1950s, scientists and engineers working in environments of intense electromagnetic fields, particle accelerators, power generation facilities, research laboratories, found that conventional watches were rendered unreliable by the magnetic interference their workplaces generated. Rolex's response was the Milgauss, introduced in 1956, a watch with a soft iron inner case, or Faraday cage, enclosing the movement and shielding it from magnetic fields of up to 1,000 Gauss. The name encodes the specification. Mille is French and Italian for 1,000. Gauss is the unit of magnetic field strength. The watch was adopted by CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and worn by physicists working on some of the most ambitious scientific experiments ever conducted. The current reference retains the distinctive lightning bolt seconds hand and the green sapphire crystal that gives it a character entirely its own within the Rolex family. a watch that is simultaneously a precision instrument and one of the most visually distinctive references the brand produces. The Rolex Milgauss retails at approximately $9,550 USD. Number 3. Cartier Ronde Louis. The Cartier Ronde Louis is the watch for the person who understands that simplicity, in haute horology, is not the absence of ambition. It is the fullest and most demanding expression of it. To produce a round dress watch of perfect proportions, flawless case finishing, and total compositional harmony without the distraction of a complication, a skeleton dial, or an architectural case is to leave absolutely nowhere to hide, and Cartier's Ronde Louis hides nothing. The case is a study in the pure geometry of the circle, polished, seamlessly transitioned between facets, proportioned with the mathematical instinct for beauty that has defined the Cartier aesthetic since Louis Cartier began making watches for the Parisian social world at the turn of the 20th century. The white or silver dial with its Roman numerals, Cartier's typographic signature, more immediately recognizable than any logo, the blued sword-shaped hands, and the cabochon sapphire crown compose a face of such serene completeness that looking at it is genuinely restful in a way that complicated watches rarely manage. The movement inside is finished and regulated to manufacturer standards. On a slim leather strap, the Ronde Louis disappears into formal dress with the ease of a watch that was designed for exactly that context. The Cartier Ronde Louis retails from approximately $5,200 USD days. Number 2. Chopard Mille Miglia The Chopard Mille Miglia carries one of motorsport's most romantic names and wears the association with the deep authenticity of a partnership that has endured for over 3 decades. The Mille Miglia, Italian for 1,000 miles, was the legendary open-road endurance race that ran from Brescia to Rome and back between 1927 and 1957, attracting the greatest drivers and the most beautiful racing machines of the era across roads lined with millions of spectators. Chopard became the official timekeeper of the Mille Miglia retrospective event in 1988 and has produced dedicated watches every year since, a commitment that has generated some of the most evocative racing-inspired references in the history of the genre. The Mille Miglia chronograph carries the visual language of the racing cockpit, a tachymeter scale, contrasting subdial registers, bold Arabic numerals, and a case construction that communicates speed and precision in equal measure. The in-house manufacture movements and the premium references deliver the horological substance to match the aesthetic ambition, and the limited annual production runs give each edition a collectibility that reflects genuine scarcity rather than artificial restraint. Worn on a perforated leather racing strap, the Mille Miglia is one of the most completely realized expressions of motorsport culture and watchmaking. The Chopard Mille Miglia retails from approximately $5,500 $8,500 or USD, depending on configuration. Number 1. Fossil Hybrid HR Collider The Fossil Hybrid HR Collider, a watch that earns the top position through an argument that is, in its own way, as compelling as anything a Swiss manufacturer has ever made. The argument that the future of watchmaking is not a betrayal of its past, but its most interesting continuation. The Fossil Hybrid HR Collider is not a smartwatch in the conventional sense, and that distinction is precisely what makes it remarkable. It is a mechanical aesthetic wristwatch, genuine analog hands, a traditional watch face, a case that could pass for a conventional timepiece at a glance, that conceals beneath its classical surface a suite of connected intelligence, heart rate monitoring, activity and sleep tracking, smartphone notifications delivered through subtle hand movements and a small secondary display, and a battery life measured not in hours, but in weeks. The Collider refuses the premise that functionality and aesthetics are in competition. It declines to put a glowing rectangle on your wrist. It chooses instead to look like a watch, feel like a watch, and wear like a watch, while quietly delivering more practical daily information than most traditional watches have offered in a century of development.